Welcome back, guys. We're back on the Mustang. Today's goal is we have a box of parts. I want to get all this front suspension tightened up. I want to get it back to a roller. We got new brakes. I also need to kind of figure out what we're going to do for wheels. I have some ideas. We're going to need to do some measuring. I have not gotten any shims for the control arms yet. I keep forgetting about that. So we're probably just going to leave that alone, but I do want to tighten up our strut bar, lift up on this so we can tighten up our sway bar, and then we can get going on putting new brakes. So let's see what we got in our box of goodies. Also, whoever at Summit Racing packed this box, y'all did a terrible job. Just saying. I'm really surprised. Like, I went to pick it up and literally all the weight is right here in the middle and it almost fell out the bottom. This is for me kind of moving it around. So I don't think we lost anything, but let's see what we got. Couldn't even carry it to like lift it up on the truck and put it on a skid steer and bring it in here. All right, we got some brake line, brake hoses for the front. Got a replacement spark plug or coil cable so I can fix my screw up there. I don't even remember what all this is, to be honest with you. I got some fuel line because what I had was -8 and I needed -6. Valve cover grommets, got a couple of those. Stickers, we got plenty of stickers. Oh yeah, we won't get into that just yet. That's probably a project for another day. Here's what we need. Yeah, all this weight. Take a little bit of weight off so we can get the bolts in for the sway bar. See if we can get our, y'all can't see what I'm doing. We can get our brake line to come off. I've been soaking this for the last couple weeks. All right, let me get a proper wrench here. Trying to avoid replacing all of these lines because there's really not anything wrong with them. I really hate making brake lines. And if you buy the pre-bent, like made kits, they suck too because by the time they get shipped here, they're bent, they don't fit. They're never really bent. It's like when the factory lines are here, you just deal with them, right? You don't really, who cares? They are what they are. But then when you go to replace them, it's like you want to do something different. make them cleaner and better, and then you get the pre-made ones that are kind of factory spec and they just, you're not happy with them. At least that's my opinion. All right, that's out of our way. We can back up a little bit and start putting the new shiny parts on, or bought. And I really was not going to do this. This was never part of the plan. But I wanted disc brakes. I wanted some kind of performance. I was really looking to do the factory Shelby style 4-piston. But by the time you piece everything together, you're just a couple $100 away from this WIlwood kit. So it was like, this is stupid to waste all this money on 1960s technology when we can buy this modern day, lighter weight, like just all around better equipment. Bolts in a nice package. This is the first thing I've ever bought from WIlwood. So far, I have to say that their packaging is next level. Oh yeah, there's the good stuff right there. So this is their, I don't know what series this is, but this is their 6-piston set of calipers. Very nice quality. It's gonna look pretty sweet on there. This car doesn't weigh a lot and it's not gonna have a crazy amount of horsepower, but we all know how hot rodding goes. The horsepower is gonna increase at some point. Man, all the bolts are individually packed, like, geez. Very nice stuff. The horsepower is going to increase at some point because that's just how it goes. And because I want to do autocross and stuff with it, like, you need really good brakes because you have to stop. You have to do the autocross course and then you have to stop in like a certain distance. And old junky 1960s brakes, we're going to struggle with that. Look at that, nice billet hub. Glistening in the sun. So I just felt like this was as expensive as it was, which really, in reality, like I said, it wasn't that much expensive. Not that expensive compared to what it was going to cost to piece something together. And there's actually several kind of added benefits in one. Is it's actually come out to be the cheaper route in the long run because these hubs are set up to take 4.5 inch, 5 on 4.5 or 5 on 4 3/4 bolt pattern. So GM car or Ford car, they're both. I think I talked about it in one of the earlier videos where currently the Mustang is 5 on 4.5, but the 9-inch that I'm putting in it come out of a F-body 4th gen Camaro, so it's 5 on 4 3/4. So if I wanted to be able to run, I'd like to try to find a used set of wheels, just because wheels can get expensive. I don't know that I'll be able to do that because we don't know what size and back spacing and all that we're going to need, so that might get kind of tricky. But I want to have more options, and I'm never going to find a matching used set that is 5 on 4.5 in the front, 5 on 4 3/4 in the rear. So it's like I have to do something. I have to either re-drill and tap the front hubs, the factory hubs, to accept the 4 3/4, or I have to do the same with the 9-inch axle shafts to accept the 4.5. It's like which way do you go? Well, with this, I'll be able to go to 5 on 4 3/4 instantly to match the rear 9-inch, and there's no extra work, there's no extra cost. Like, I just kind of fronted the cost in this brake kit. So it's like a no-brainer at this point. So now we just got to get out the instructions because I've never done this before. And we're going to figure out how to put it together. Important. Installation should only be performed by persons experienced in the installation of disc brake systems. Brakes must be tested after installation. Do not drive on untested brakes. Got it. Racing use only. Yes. Oh, and in case you forget, they give you a different worded one that's bright yellow. So when you tell them, hey, I crashed my car, your brakes didn't work after I installed them, well, they can tell you kick rocks, because you got two different instruction warnings in there in different colors. All right, we got some pictures. We got an exploded view. That's always good. The good news is these are drum brake spindles. If we were to have factory disc brake spindles, we actually have to do some modifications to the spindles. So that's nice. All right, there again, read all warnings. Should only be installed by someone experienced. I like to think I'm experienced. I told you a minute ago I didn't know what kit this was, but this is the 65 to 69 for both spindles. They're Dynapro 6-piston front brake kit. This is supposedly supposed to work with a 15-inch wheel. Now the factory was 14-inch. We're not going to go back there. But I have some different wheel ideas. I kind of want to run anywhere between a 15 and a 17. I don't really want to get too much past that. So this one will be good. I mean, I could have went with their bigger brake kit, spent another $1,000, got bigger rotors, but we're not trying to stop 5,000 pounds. We're not making 1,000 horsepower. If we ever get to that point someday, then by that point, these brakes will probably be wore out anyway, and maybe we can do something else. But for now, this is gonna be way more than we need. Disassembly, we've already done that. We got parts list, that's real nice. So if we ever need replacement parts, spindle modification, we don't have to do that. All right, we're gonna start here with the backing plate. Looks like it's got an extra set of holes for different spindles. As I think the disc brake spindles are, 3-bolt. All right, we're gonna need, tells us what bolts we need. We just gotta reference the part list and then find them in the kit. That seems pretty easy enough. Oh, that's pretty cool. So the parts list, this is a really good write-up. Like they've got a good engineer that's putting this together. So a line bracket using 4A holes. You want bolts 2A and 5, washers 3, and lock nuts 4. So you come over here and you can find the individual ones in your item, but you can also find the kit. So like the 230, 110, 65 is for the spindle bracket, and then it tells you what number it includes. So we just go to the box and we match up that. It also helps look at the diagram. You can kind of see, well, these longer bolts with the shoulder on them are going to go for our spindles. So that's pretty nice. At first I opened this box and I seen these brackets. I was like, are those plastic? Because they have like inserts put in them. But no, they're billet aluminum, but they put the hardened steel inserts for the calipers, so you can't like destroy the bolts. You can't destroy the threads as easy, so that's pretty nice. I will say one weird thing with this kit. I think the factory ones might be the same, but the caliper mounts to the front side, which, I don't know, it just seems a little bit strange to me. Only thing bad about these packages is getting them open. Okay, looks like we got one long bolt. It's gonna go through our bottom here because it's got a longer, it's got to go through the steering arm. All right, it gives you torque specs of 30 foot-pounds. If you're doing this at home, you should get your torque wrench and set it to 30 foot-pounds. It's kind of weird. The bolt head's got 9/16, and the nut is a 7/16. Okay, next step. We're gonna put our wheel studs in. Not sure which one is necessarily what. It's kind of hard to measure with that hub sticking out. Alright, I did the smart thing and I went and put the hub on top of one of the Mustang wheels that we took off, and then I lined up the holes that fit there and basically picked the other one. You're gonna need a 12-point socket for these. It doesn't say to tighten them, but we're just gonna run them in. My guess is we may snug them. Okay, now I have a set of 5-on 120 wheels, which are 5-on 4 3/4. So I'm just gonna go double check that that fits in there and I have that right. Okay, turns out I had it backwards. Oh, I guess you can actually see if you're looking at this, like this hole is slightly under that hole, so that's got to be the 4.5, and the hole towards the outside has to be the 4 3/4. I just wasn't paying that much attention to it. I did find one kind of downside that when I went to try that other wheel I had, because I was actually thinking about trying to fit them on the front and just get an idea for a size, but they are modern wheels which have a hub style. They don't have an outward bearing like these do, so they will not actually fit down over this somewhat large cone. So there goes that idea that I had, but that's okay. Okay, we're gonna pack the inner bearing. Looks like we're gonna pack the inner bearing, and then we're gonna mount this to the rotor. I'm gonna go ahead and pack the inner and outer bearing so I can only ruin them one pair of gloves, and then we'll have it ready to fit on there. It's a pretty cool little cap though. Got an O-ring. Just snug it by hand, I guess. I don't know what that's gonna look like in a few years when you have to try to take it apart, and you gotta take a pair of channel locks to that. But cross that bridge when we get there, I suppose. Oof, we're getting a little low on the grease. Had this tub for years. High temp disc brake, wheel bearing grease. You just gotta find the bearings. Find the bearings. Just realized every single one of these boxes has stickers in it. We'll be able to put stickers on everything for days. Keep losing the instructions, so we're gonna just put the instructions, the magnet, on the fender. It's too hot to work without the fan, but some of this you really can't do. Fan just blowing everywhere. There's different ways you can pack bearings. They make bearing packers. Fill it full of grease, dump it in there. And it does the rest, but I just get a bunch of grease in my fingers, pack it down in the groove, you roll it around until it starts coming out. A little messy, but you don't need no fancy tools. The point is you just want to get every little nook and cranny inside that bearing covered in grease. Okay, we're gonna do the front one, just get it out the way. You definitely don't want to do this without your gloves on. I mean, you can, but if you want to sit around and clean them up. You also want to make sure when you roll it around that you're not rolling the whole bearing. I kind of pinch the inner race with my finger, because if you're just rolling the whole thing on your finger, you're not getting anywhere. You just want to roll the outer band with the bearings. Okay, we're happy with that. I'm gonna take one glove off. That way we got one hand to hold the clean bearing, or the clean hub, and then we got one to put our bearing in. Get that nice and rolled around in there and coated. Now we can ditch the other glove and proceed to knock our seal in. If you're also doing this at home, I highly suggest you clean off your work table, and you get a bigger work table than my little 12 by 12 square there on the thing, but it's okay. It is what it is. We're making it work. I could go clean off the table, but I don't feel like doing that, so we're not gonna do it. Okay, step whatever. These are not stepped in numbers, they're just in order, I guess. Okay, rotor and rotor adapter. Ooh, these rotors are nice, dude. Too bad they won't be black very long. Okay, we just got to figure out which way this goes. Looks like it goes just like that. bolts number 12, which is going to be part number 11934. That's the individual part number. What's the kit part number? 12120. It's going to be these right here. Torx head. Great. I just noticed there's this little, I don't know, I guess kind of a tab on the back. I'm not sure if that's what that's for, but you just rip it open and dump out the bolts we need. Okay, we need some red Loctite and a Torx head that fits this. It says to use red Loctite number 271. This is JB Weld red Loctite, so not the Loctite brand, but it'll work the same. I got this backwards. Not backwards, but the bolt's got to thread in from this side. We'll get 3 of them started. I guess one downside to running these brakes is you're not going to go to O'Reilly's and get a spare set. That's all right though. Sacrifices have to be made sometimes. All right, these are, I don't know if they're stainless steel bolts, but they're steel bolts into aluminum, so I'm not going to use the impact. Instructions say 25 foot-pounds, so that should be pretty easy to do while holding it, I think. I hate Torx head. Torx head with a flex head ratchet is. Alright, it's somewhere between 24.5 and 27. Next step is we can take our hub with our bearing and our seal and mount it to this side. Like that. Okay, what bolts do we need? 3829. I guess they do tell you what the they have the part number, but also the description. So like this is the bolt kit for the hub adapter rotor. This also says Loctite, and I'm about to say there's not enough bolts for both sides, but one kit does one side. Red Loctite, 45 foot-pounds. 45 is gonna be a little tough with torque wrench on here, but we'll try it. All right, we're gonna run them down with the impact. See what we can do on the torque. I don't really want to clamp this thing in the vise or nothing. It's too nice for that. I would say I could put it in a wheel, but it won't fit in a wheel because we changed the bolt pattern. All right, I'll get them to like 32. All right, we'll do a little bit of race prep here and paint our bolt heads. Maybe we can see if they ever start moving. Not that we'll be able to see them, but when we take them apart, we'll know. Whoop. That did not really work, did it? One of them just kind of bled paint everywhere. It's okay though. All right, next step is to pack your small bearing. We already did that. This will wipe off the spindle, slip the new one on. Take our packed bearing. It doesn't say anything about putting extra grease in there. Like I'm used to doing trailers and stuff. Typically gets extra grease. We won't put a lot, but we're gonna put a little bit in there. All right, so apparently we're supposed to use the original castle nut on the spindle. Try to clean that up a little bit. So they give you a new washer, bearing retainer, I guess. says to tighten this to OEM specs. I don't know exactly what OEM specs, but I'll do what I always do. Snug it down. Spin it a few times. And I'll back it off and just kind of put a little bit of pressure. That should give us just enough preload. And a new cotter pin not included. Well, that's kind of frustrating. All right, well, I was looking for my cotter pin box the other day and I can't find it. So for now, we're gonna slap that back on there and we're gonna call it good. And we'll address the cotter pin at a later date. Y'all don't let me forget that though. Okay, we need the left-hand caliper. Looks like we got some bolts and some shims. Not real sure. I think by shims, they're just talking about these washers. Place 2 shims on each. We got a set of washers on the bolt head. All right, let's turn this a little bit so we can get some more room to see. Sure, the caliper's mounted so the largest pistons are at the rotor exit end of the caliper. What? In relation to the direction of rotor rotation. So they're going this way. This is going to be mounted here. Oh, I guess they are all kind of different size pistons. That's kind of crazy. Alright, so it looks like the shims are there. They go between the caliper and the bracket just to make sure that the caliper stays centered and that the bolts don't protrude past the bracket and then come in contact with the rotor. So the instructions say to lightly tighten the mounting bolts. Rotor should be centered in the caliper. So it is currently not centered in the caliper. I don't know if you can see this, but it's a little bit. Here's the center. So we need another set of shims. You can also see down in here, well, y'all probably can't, but the bolt head is protruding just a little bit past the bracket, which the pictures and the instructions say that that is no good. So I'm gonna say we need to add 2 more shims. I'm dropping them everywhere. All right, so I said start with 2. We started with 2, not quite enough. We're going to 4. Doing this without losing the shims is a little bit difficult. The shims go on the inside in between and you got to back the bolt out to get it to fit. But then if you back the bolt out too much, you lose the shims. So, no, we need to take 1 shim out. I think we needed 3. Oh, that's better. Way better. Okay, is there a torque spec on those? All right, so that step was just to figure out how many shims we need. Now we can pull it back apart. Put our brake pads on and also put some Loctite on those bolts. All right, we got a little snap ring in here. Pull that out. Don't let it fly across the shop. We can pull these pins out. I guess the brake pads come with a new set of pins so that if you're doing this, if you're replacing your pads, then you get a new set of little snap rings. I have worked on WIlwood brakes before. They're nice. I just haven't ever owned a set. I don't know. They make some that are a lot more expensive, but I believe if I remember right, I've worked on a set before where you can change the pads without taking the caliper off. Might be wrong. Those might have been a different brand. I'm not 100% sure anymore, but all right. So now we got our calipers loaded with our brake pads. I really have no idea what brake pads these are in terms of like what the brake pad specs are, I guess. I don't know. Okay, Loctite, need a little bit of Loctite. Well, with the brake pads in there, you can't see where the bolts are. Make sure you don't lose the shims. Well, so far, that's kind of the only complaint I have are the shims. I mean, I get why they're there. You need some level of adjustment. I can't say I got a better way to do it, but 40 foot-pounds. This one will be easy to torque. Well, easier. We won't have a bunch of stuff trying to move on us. All right, well, I'd say that side is done, and that looks freaking sweet. I'm not gonna put the brake hoses on yet because I gotta change out the master cylinder. The one in there is frozen. Gotta put a new one on. So I don't want to connect all this in case I get to a point where I can't remove the ones on the master cylinder and I end up having to replace it. So if I can get all that changed out, fine, then I'll connect these, but I am super thrilled with that. Looks freaking sick. We're gonna have 4-wheel disc brakes. The factory kind of style disc brakes on the rear are gonna look pretty pretty junky next to these, but I guess it kind of depends on what wheels we find, how much that gets shown. Man, it just looks so strange to have the caliper in the front. I don't know why. Maybe that's... No, that's not normal. Everything I own that's got disc brakes has them in the rear. I don't know. But that looks nice. So let's go knock out the other side. All right, well, now that we know what we're doing, let's knock this side out. Put a little pressure on the lower control arm. Try to get our bolt there down. For some reason it's not wanting to go. Okay, I cannot talk. Caliper bracket first. We got the long bolt that goes down here at the bottom. Nope, that's the wrong hole. It's got to go to the front. Got to remember that. Wonder how long do you think we can do this? It's 2 o'clock. I bet, considering we've already done it first once on the other side, we can do this. I think we can be done by 2:30.
Well, I saddled up my shoes, headed out at dawn. Yeah, I saddled up my shoes, headed out at dawn. Ain't no place gonna hold me when the road keep rolling on. Left my baby crying, said you can't live that way. Left my baby crying, said you can't live that way. I told her love ain't chained down, it just comes and drifts away. Yeah. Saw the sun in the distance, looked like a burning coin. Saw the sun in the distance, looked like a burning coin. Lord,
Perfect. Yep, still the only complaint is those shims. Everything else been a piece of cake. Instructions are clean. Parts are real nice and organized. Just not a fan of the shim. And there we have it. I mean, we ain't doing too bad. 36 minutes. Still gotta get some cotter pins put on the axle nut. I think that looks pretty sweet. I am concerned because like, that's full turn to the right. I guess that's not. That's about the same. Well, we're definitely not gonna be able to drift this thing. There's not enough angle in that. There's not enough fender and tire clearance for that. But it's not supposed to be a drift machine. It's just gonna be autocross and a fun street toy.